First guy I'm going to talk about here is Otto Porter Jr. from the Chicago Bulls.
Okay.
So I think the number one thing we just talked about, the preface of the contract amount is going to freak people out. This is going to set Celtics Twitter on fire if they do. So Otto Porter Jr. is 28.5 million. He's the entire TPE exception.
Okay.
So it's not ideal in that sense. And because of the tax implications, you may have to get a little creative. I don't know how much of the tax would end up, the front office would be willing to pay. So, you can throw in Javonte Green, Carson Edwards. There's, a couple other guys at the end of the bench that you can throw in here so you can get to 3 to 5 million. So you're not getting taxed on as much if you don't want to try and get a full $9 million in there. Mm-hmm. But I think the appeal of Otto Porter, he hits a lot of those things that you talked about with Harrison Barnes. He's a 40% three-point shooter. He averages, for his career, about 11 points. This year he's at 12.8 points. He's used to playing about 25 to 30 minutes a game. He plays solid D. It's an expiring contract, so you're not on the hook for anything beyond that. It's just this year that you're focusing on with Otto Porter. And because he costs so much money and we have this exception, I really don't think that, like within the PJ Tucker deal, there's going to be many teams that, even if they like Otto Porter, it's going to be too difficult to try and come up with $28 million to match and bring him into your team. So I think this is an area where we have an advantage to bring in a guy like this. And it's not a super flashy move. It's absolutely a move that adds us depth and adds us another wing player that can play, I think, in a 6-7 man rotation in the playoffs, can spell the Jays. Is he the answer to everything? Probably not, but I think he's a real solid pickup. And I think to get him, the Bulls are, in my mind, I wouldn't envision that they really have him as part of their long-term plan. So
sure.
If they can get a protected first for him, they can get a second-round pick and, Carson, Javonte, any of those, any of the bench guys that aren't even going to play. I don't imagine him costing the Celtics a ton. And I think that's where there's a lot of value with looking at a guy like Otto Porter, along with the on-court presence that he brings.